All right, so let's just jump right in. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to tackle a massive, fascinating thought experiment based on some incredibly compelling scientific scenarios about our closest celestial neighbor. You know, we look up at it almost every single night, but we rarely stop to think about how heavily our whole planet relies on it. So today, we are exploring exactly what would happen if the moon just disappeared.
Picture this. You step outside tonight, look up at the night sky, and see absolutely nothing where the moon should be. Just an empty patch of space. It's a pretty dramatic hook, right? But the actual science of what happens next is even more mind-bending than just an empty sky. Earth would feel the effects in ways that are both subtle and, frankly, incredibly dramatic.
Now you might be thinking, instant apocalypse, right? But as this brilliantly illustrates, the reality is that the disappearance of the moon wouldn't destroy life all at once. We wouldn't just spontaneously combust or go flying off into the void. Rather, it would set off a slow, escalating cascade of planetary changes. It's not a sudden doom, it's a gradual, profound transformation of the world as we know it.
Okay, let's start with Section 1, immediate impacts, specifically looking at tides and darkness. These are the things you'd notice right off the bat.
First up, visibility. Notice how much darker our nights would become. Right now, our current nights get a massive boost because the moon reflects sunlight back to Earth. Without it, our future nights would be pitch black. And I mean literally, absolutely dark. This sudden plunge into darkness would immediately affect nocturnal animals who rely on that ambient light to hunt and survive. And it would fundamentally change how we humans experience the dark, especially anywhere outside of a bright city.
Then there's this massive fraction, 1/3. It's a huge deal. You see, the moon's gravity is the absolute main driver of our tides. Without that gravitational pull, our ocean tides would just shrink, all the way down to a measly 1/3 of their current height.
Without that lunar gravity, the tides as we know them would be totally transformed. Currently, they're this dynamic tag-team effort from both the moon and the sun. But in our future moonless scenario, we're left with tides driven solely by the sun. So those dramatic, sweeping tides we know today would instantly be replaced by a much, much weaker, solar-only rhythm. The dynamic churning of our oceans would just basically calm down.
And, that radically weaker tide isn't just bad news for surfers. It would be an absolute disaster for coastal ecosystems. Environments that depend entirely on robust tidal rhythms, like mangroves and tidal flats, would be thrown into complete chaos. And because these areas are essentially the nurseries for the ocean, this disruption would ripple outward, heavily impacting marine life from the very bottom of the food chain all the way up.
Moving on to our next section, Earth's extreme climate wobble. Because over time, the loss of the moon really starts messing with the mechanics of how our planet moves.
To really understand the coming chaos, we first have to talk about Earth's axial tilt. Right now, Earth sits comfortably at an angle of about 23.5 degrees. That specific angle is exactly what gives us our consistent, predictable seasons. And the crucial point here is that this tilt is critically stabilized purely because the moon acts as a massive, invisible gravitational anchor.
So take away the anchor, and what happens? Well, just look at this timeline. In the present day, we've got our nice, stable 23.5-degree tilt. But fast forward a few thousand years, and without the moon holding us steady, that tilt begins to vary wildly. Fast forward millions of years, we're looking at a planet that has lost all seasonal stability. And as the Earth wobbles, our long-term weather patterns would become utterly unpredictable. We wouldn't just be dealing with, say, weirdly hot summers. We'd be swinging violently between two completely wild extremes. We are talking deep, planetary ice ages rapidly giving way to literally scorching periods. That stable, cozy climate that actually allowed human civilization to flourish, completely gone.
Which brings us to another massive mechanical shift, the spin and shorter days. The physics of our planetary clock basically break down into 3 simple steps here. First, the moon's gravity currently creates this sort of drag on Earth, subtly slowing down our rotation. Second, if the moon vanishes, that gravitational drag disappears completely. And third, without those brakes holding us back, Earth's spin gradually begins to speed up.
So, the ultimate result over a vast expanse of time is that our days would actually get shorter. The Earth would just be pirouetting faster and faster in space. So hey, if you feel like you just don't have enough time to get things done in a 24-hour day right now, just wait a few million years without a moon. You'd have even less time.
Finally, let's bring this grand astronomical explainer back down to Earth and look at life and culture reshaped. Biologically speaking, the animal kingdom would be completely blindsided. I mean, countless species use the moon's light or its subtle gravitational cycles just to survive. They rely on it for nighttime navigation across vast distances. They rely on it for perfectly timed reproduction cycles, like coral spawning. They rely on it for seasonal migrations. All of these deep biological dependencies would be wiped out in an instant.
And we definitely aren't immune either. Human society would lose a profound cultural touchstone. I'm talking lunar calendars, traditional ceremonies, deeply ingrained historical and celestial references, all tied to the phases of the moon. Stripping that away means stripping away a key reference point that has guided human history, agriculture, and religion for literal millennia. It's incredible how this single quote perfectly encapsulates the grand narrative. The disappearance of the moon would be reshaping Earth's future in profound ways. It's a slow-motion reshaping of absolutely everything we know. The environmental, the climatic, the cultural, these changes would permanently transform our home.
So, I'll leave you to ponder this final question. If the moon shapes everything from the stability of our weather to the height of our oceans to the very culture that defines humanity, how much of us is actually tied to the moon? Really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? It just reveals how deeply interconnected our fragile planet is with that quiet, glowing rock we so often take for granted. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep looking up.